Lindsey, thank you for coming on Shrink Wrapped. We're just going to have a conversation. Usually I learn about people starting from a base of knowing their name and nothing more. I know a little bit about you, but not too much. You're involved in film, I think, is that right?
Yeah, screenwriter, director, actor, producer.
So that's a lot.
Yeah, I guess so.
You enjoy it?
Most often, I have an idea that I do, and then sometimes I'm in the middle of it, and I'm like, I'm not really enjoying this, but I keep doing it, so I would say probably yes.
You ever feel as though you need to do it because you have something inside that you need to share? There's some...
I've always had that sense, yeah. I've always had the sense that I would have a voice that many people would hear.
Because they'd want to hear.
Yeah.
And often when people feel that, it's because they've had challenges.
Yes, many challenges, yeah.
What kind of challenges have you had?
Lots of personal challenges. I would say it's not necessarily something I wear like on my sleeve, but very difficult childhood and teen years and
Why?
drug and alcohol addiction, violence.
So I'm going to unpack that.
Yes.
I love that word, unpack.
Unpack
You were
that
born
package.
here?
No, I was born in New Brunswick.
And you were raised in New Brunswick?
Nope. Brought over and raised here.
And were you brought over by both parents?
Just one, yeah.
So your parents separated and you came here?
Yes.
And the difficult times you describe started at an early age?
I think there were, points that were difficult that didn't seem that way. I find with alcoholism can be really normalized, and so when you grow up around certain things, you don't ever consider that someone else isn't experiencing the same thing.
So again, just to understand, you're talking about some things going on in your household that you thought as normal.
Yes.
Looking back, they weren't.
Yes.
You talked about violence. Was that violence directed at you or violence that you witnessed, or both?
Both, yeah.
And who directed the violence at you?
That was my mother, yeah.
And what's your relationship with her now?
We haven't spoken in like 12 years.
And so that's the way you've coped, is you've...
Escaped.
Since you're an adult, really, because you've told me your age, so it's roughly since adulthood.
Well, that was when I made the initial. I was emancipated from my family when I was 16 years old. And then...
What does that mean?
Government intervention, I guess.
You were in foster care?
Apprehended, yeah.
For your own safety?
Yes, yeah.
You were at the time, I'm guessing, using drugs and or alcohol?
I was actually, at the time with my mother, yes, yeah. But I was not I guess, I didn't recognize that at the time as being unusual, growing up where that's available or that was normalized.
So it was hard. What usually happens is when people go through that, they tend to have very low self-esteem.
Yeah.
They act out, they can use drugs or alcohol, they can be promiscuous, they can start gambling, they can become depressed or anxious, they can have eating disorders.
Yeah.
So you had a number of issues, and you can share whatever you want on that. I'm not going to probe on that.
Yeah, for sure. I think, I don't think you get into or get out of a situation like that without being marred somehow. But yeah, definitely anxiety, suicidal tendencies, my own addiction.
Did you ever actually try and kill yourself?
No, did not get to that point, but it was absolutely, it got to the planning stages, and if the intervention didn't happen when it did, of being removed from my home, then absolutely that would have been my fate, yeah. And
so you can understand the tragedies that when teens go through? Absolutely,
that absolute utter hopelessness and just not seeing a way out and not wanting to feel, not feeling anymore, yeah.
We started the interview, here you are, successful, I'd say mid-30s, everything going well, career most people would dream of. That's a 20-year journey.
Yes.
So how long has that been on a positive stance? And it's great that it happened, but what led to that?
Like the positive journey. I think honestly the positive journey started as soon as I left my family. And, a lot of those symptoms of anxiety went away, which was odd to me because I felt very unsafe in the real world and safe in that family unit, where it was actually reality was the other way around. The only place I wasn't really safe was with my family. And, you know, just because of their own addiction, inability to really be present, and the things that go on as a result of that. So that started the positive thing, but I've had a lot of therapy and healing through that. Feel very lucky the people that came into my life.
You've obviously had a very difficult journey, and you're moving forwards on it, and you've got lots of ambitions and so on, and all looks good now.
Yep.
Are there times you feel that you're at risk of being dragged back down?
Yes, still, constantly, absolutely.
What triggers that?
You know, memory and what I understand now is trauma and PTSD. At the time, I thought it was just I'm damaged and broken and not like other people. And, you know, there were certain things that were happening, like panic attacks or fun things called rage blackouts that I was experiencing.
What's a rage blackout?
Where you completely lose your mind, and I experienced leaving my body and attacking someone without a whole lot of memory of what had happened.
Was that alcohol induced or separate?
No, that was after I stopped drinking, actually, oddly enough. When I lost my medicine, that's when all of those symptoms really started to surface, because alcohol for me really numbed all of that stuff.
Self-medicating with alcohol.
Totally.
A lot of people use drugs for the same purpose, for whatever that drug is. They do that to numb themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, just coming back to how you would help others in a sense, if you had this major platform, whatever that was, books, movies, internet, what would be the single message you'd like to pass on?
That it gets better. You know, it's funny, when I hit those anniversaries of like the night that I was going to take my life, I try to reflect on what happened in the year.
So just to be clear, you have an anniversary because there was a date you sat there and said, I'm going to do that. You had a plan.
Yeah.
What was your plan? Hang yourself, overdose?
Ooh, no,
gas,
it
stab,
was,
drown?
oh, I hate to share it because I feel like...
You've still got it available.
Well, not that it's still available, but in my experience, suicide or suicidal thoughts can be really romanticized and almost contagious, if that makes sense. Like, I had a very specific plan that I obsessed about and visualized, and like it was incredibly detailed, and I felt almost soothed by that, as though very similar to my addiction of it feels better to think that this is my escape.
And that's
that this
not
is going to
unusual,
happen.
by the way, as you know. So the reason I was coming back to it was the date. Part of it involved a specific date, that you were going to do this plan on a specific date.
Yeah.
And each year, as that date anniversary comes up, is that what you were saying?
Yeah, that I reflect on, this is all the stuff that I would have missed. You know, how incredible, like each year that passes, that, wow, like I try to focus on the relationships that I've built in that year, or the, you know, the creative accomplishments, or how I feel about myself, and just think, yep, like if it was up to me and I didn't have this psychic shift or moment of clarity or physical intervention, I would have lost all of that, you know, lost out on that. And I would have, I think, a lot of other people would be impacted by my absence as well, because I am connected now, where I was not before.
Lindsey was very open about the challenges she's had in her life and some of the really tough things that have happened to her. And yet she's persevered, she's successful, and you'd never know if you met her today how she is. She really exemplifies the saying, everybody has a story. Thank you for joining me on Shrink Wrapped.